it's Whitney Owens over at Water's Edge Counseling. Excited today to be doing a quick interview with one of our counselors. I have Camie Goods here with me. How are you, Camie?
I'm great. How are you, Whitney? Hi, audience.
Yeah, doing good. So Camie's in our new space. Ironically, of course, we got some new space right before all the quarantine occurred. And so none of our clients have really seen the new space, but hopefully you'll get to see it soon. And we are slowly opening back up. And so Camie's actually in the office seeing clients this week, taking lots of measures in place to make sure everyone's comfortable. But we are seeing some clients in the office and online. So today I wanted to take some time to let Camie kind of introduce herself to you and tell you a little bit about herself. You want to kind of share a little about yourself and about your degree and kind of what you do working with clients?
Sure. I've been with Water's Edge for almost a year and a half. I think it's been maybe even a little bit more than that. I graduated out of Liberty University with my master's in counseling. I have my undergrad in psychology. And my background is pretty diverse. I've worked in some mental hospitals here in town, as well as out and about in people's home doing therapy there. I've also been passionate because I've served at Pulaski Women's State Prison for almost 20 years. I've been out of that ministry for about over a year. I miss it, and I may go back. But that was really an amazing time for both personally, clinically, emotionally, all things. So I am married for 24 years. We've been just celebrated this past weekend, and I have two beautiful grandbabies, and my son serves in the military. So yeah, we're a busy family. Love to hike in the mountains and get away and do some of that, get refreshed back up and work hard when I'm in the office. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, you like to enjoy life. So that's good.
I do.
Yeah, why don't you talk, what types of clients do you enjoy working with?
Well, anybody who is struggling in life, really. I work with 18 and adult and up, I should say. I love family systems work. I work a lot with addictions. I've got diverse clients from personality disorders, bipolar, lots of people who struggle with depression and anxiety, and then just phase of life. You know, I do hear from clients, oh, I don't have this big problem and I feel so silly coming in here. And I'm like, there is no problem that is too silly. When you start to feel that life is overwhelming and you need to talk with somebody, I think that's a great time to seek help. Too often people come into the office and life is an absolute disaster and it's overwhelming. So the earlier that you can get started, I say the best that you can, get a hold of your mental health. It's an extremely important part of who we are. So.
Excuse me. I'm really glad that you said that because it is so important. We often do wait too long. Clients all the time will say, oh, I don't have some big thing to talk about. But counseling is good all the time. Like counseling can help you out with coping skills and things like that. But it's also just a time of self-reflection and our own personal growth. And why is that not okay all the time? I had a therapist once said to me, Whitney, do you think it's wrong that you want to take an hour out of your day to actually talk about yourself and improve your life? And I was like, I guess not. I guess that's a good thing because me being better is only going to help everyone else in my life.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I'm also passionate about couples work. And I know that you wanted to talk a lot about some of the couples work and what we do here at Water's Edge.
Yeah, would love to kind of hear, how do you work with couples? What's it like when a couple comes into the office?
I've actually been stretched because I've had to do some couples work online as well. And I'll say it's gone much better than what I thought it was going to. So I've been pleasantly surprised. But I think the preferable way, of course, when you're able to actually utilize some skills as far as role play or anything behavioral, that you would want them to be face-to-face. But certainly, online, when people don't feel safe, that's the most important. So with couples work, it's really meeting the couples with where they're at. Radical acceptance is huge. It's a matter of working with partners to understand what's working and what's not working. So we discuss everything from, intimacies to communication problems to, just the differences of interpretation of how couples are not interpreting life the same. You've got couples who could fall into now being empty nesters and now having to self-discover. Now, do we even like each other? Can we do this thing together? And that's a transition of life right there. So, it can be anything from, freshly married to really having some high expectations of what you thought marriage was going to be, all the way into long-term, wow, we're 20, 30 years into this and we've lost ourselves. So helping people to rediscover or to discover, sometimes for the first time, their identity without losing it within the family system, the independent identity, and how does that work within the marriage?
Yeah. Yeah, and so many marriages can ebb and flow, and there are different seasons that we need more help than others. For those of you that are watching, if you have a question you want to throw at Camie about marriage or about counseling, feel free to throw that in the chat. We'll do our best to answer that. Camie, I think some people were looking for some tips on how to keep their marriage going during this craziness that we're in, whatever we want to call it. So do you have any kind of tips for people?
Yeah, I would say, something I've had to personally even come up with within our own marriage is to keep it spontaneous. Because staying at home and in a quarantine state when there's so many fears looming, just to be spontaneous, of just say, hey, let's go for a drive. Now that things are opening up, at least in our community, this may reach far more areas, being that it's Facebook, but in our area, we do have restaurants that are open, but you can even just take a drive, out to the beach and just do something spontaneous at sunset, that's not planned. I find that, sometimes within the planning, anxieties can come up. So even just coming home with a deck of Uno cards and saying, hey, let's just, let's play Uno tonight and get your favorite drink and cook a meal together, which you haven't done in a while. Of course, there's so many Netflix and Prime videos that people have tuned into that they're kind of getting sick and burnt out from binge watching TV during this quarantine. So that's why I say getting up and about. I'm really excited to see out in communities, though, and this is a good thing about the quarantine and what has happened, if we had to pick out some good, is that people are really, as families, going on bike rides and walks and just getting outdoors as much as they can. And so that's been great to hear. But I'm talking about becoming spontaneous, either you yourself, if you're listening to this, or your partner, generating something, that spontaneity that drew you together. Really becoming cognizant again of who is my partner and what do they like? What do they enjoy? Start intentionally going after those things that would serve them or make them happy. And go after that for an intentional period of time, whether it's a couple days or a week, and just really set that as a goal. That can be something. Also, communication. A lot of people, this is where we see a lot of people coming into counseling, is because communication really becomes difficult. And I know for me, we had to work through those issues for years and years of communication problems and missing one another and misinterpreting one another's intentions even, and where they were coming from, and being more reactionary. And so there's things within marriages that I think a lot of people don't identify, but you could have somebody that you're married to somebody with ADHD, let's say, and you don't really recognize or understand what that diagnosis really is. You've heard, oh, they're ADD and this, that, and the other thing, and you've labeled them, but you don't understand the pitfalls that come with being married to somebody with that disorder. The irritability, the impulsivity, those are all those are tough things to get through when you're married to somebody and you don't understand, why are they so, impulsive? Why are they so irritable? And some of it is like learning how to adapt to one another. What about when you're married to somebody who is more dysthymic, more on the depressed level, and they go into negativistic thinking? That's kind of how their brain reacts. So I'm talking about really exploring your partner, really understanding and not personalizing it then. Mm-hmm. Their issue. This is their work through. Yes, marriage is the place where so many of our issues get worked out. And it's the closest ones that are to us that pay the price for some of our tough characteristics and our tough problematic behavior, that they have to pay the price the most. But if you will learn to not personalize those things and identify that those are their issues, how can I aid them? How can I become more in a servant's role? How can I be a part of the solution instead of adding to the problem? So those are just some of the things that we work out in.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, and even I'm thinking about the person that's personalizing it. Why are they personalizing it? And they've got their own stuff that they're bringing to the table to work on too. It's easy to focus on our partner and their issues, but we need to focus on the issues that we're bringing to the marriage.
That's right. That's right. It's, that whole, we've all heard this, one finger pointing and three pat back at you. That's where a lot of my breakthrough came in, is that I was sitting here maybe putting judgmentalism toward my husband for some of his behaviors. And I'm sitting here, well, Camie, you better look at your bad self too over here, and you start to self-examine and become more self-aware of why you are feeling this way. So what are some of those anxious thoughts? Do you have fear of abandonment looming? Is there areas where you feel out of control when your partner acts like this or verbalizes something, and understanding your triggers? So those are just some of the things.
That's great. Let's go back to this idea of spontaneity. I love that. And I don't hear that from a lot of people. So I love that you brought that up. Why do you think couples are not spontaneous?
I think they just get into some really, I call them like quicksand. You don't mean to fall into it. It just kind of happens. And you just get into this routine of life. And we talk about routine being so important, especially in child development. We want particular bedtimes, and we want and if it brings us safety. And then, that's great for child rearing, but that can be really detrimental to a marriage, to cause a lot of boredom to kick in. And then what happens, I think, even on a subconscious level, is that you see all these movies and everybody's all, crazy and everything, and they're having just such a blast. Or else you get on social media and you're entering into Facebook and everybody's got it together. So we've got this comparative going on. And so I think people just become exhausted and they just do what they normally would do without a lot of intentional within the relationship. I think they're more in survival mode.
Sure. Yeah, that's so true. And I was also thinking maybe they're not spontaneous because they don't want to deal with their marriage. Like there's a problem in the marriage and they don't realize it. But when we're spontaneous, it's when we connect with our spouse. And sometimes we're scared of connection, as crazy as that sounds, because we're scared of where the relationship is going or what could be happening. Yeah. So I'm going to learn to be more spontaneous. In fact, last night, you're talking about doing silly things. My husband and I did a puzzle on the floor because my 3-year-old and my 7-year-old weren't too interested. The 3-year-old did put a couple pieces together, but then we did the rest of it. And then we talked about the puzzle and pointed at different things. Now it's like, we're seriously sitting here doing a kid's puzzle. But I felt a real connection, with my spouse as I was doing something like that.
And I love that. I love that you bring it into simplicity, because it doesn't have to be something major. It can be just so, hey, let's go and grab some cornhole boards we've never played before, and let's, try something different as the family in the backyard and have a barbecue, or let's decorate and theme it. I mean, being creative, as whether it's just couples or bringing the whole, integrating the family into it, can help revive and sustain and create some of those connections that have been lost, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Camie, let's say somebody's sitting here listening and they're thinking, wow, maybe there is a problem in my marriage. Maybe I need to work on something. What would you tell them to do?
Well, it's hard because, of course, by the time they usually come to me or another marriage therapist, they're already in crisis many times. And a lot of times the attraction level's gone, your sex life is completely diminished. They are full of judgment toward one another and contempt. It's really a matter of identifying with where you're at. John Gottman really talks about the 4 horsemen that really ruins relationships, and defensiveness. Are you defensive constantly toward your spouse? Everything they say, you're just defensive. Are you holding them in contempt? Is there these brooding underlying, things that you've got going on that you're just really dissatisfied either with your own life or them? Maybe you're projecting some things onto them. There's many, many reasons why people get to where they're at. And I think it just really takes some in-depth, I no longer want to be like this. We need a change, and I'm going to be willing to do what I have to do to make the changes. Because without that attitude, with one even in the marriage, I've seen it happen with just one person making these changes, such as boundary setting. Somebody just really getting healthy with boundary setting changes the whole dynamics of the relationship. That type of movement, that type of behavioral and thought life change in a marriage changes the marriage and the way of doing life. So I would say first identifying why is the marriage where it's at? What is going on and what can I do? Not what can they do? Because so often if they would just, blah, 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 and we're so easy to point out their flaws, but really go inward and say, what are some things I can start working on for my wellness, and go after it independently, and then start to get yourself built back up so that you can feel empowered enough to change the entire dynamic of the relationship.
That's great. That's great. When one person in the system changes, everybody's got to change, right?
Everybody's got to change. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Camie, if somebody's watching this today and they want to get in touch with you, or maybe they want to schedule an appointment, or maybe they're just not sure if they need counseling, what do you recommend they do?
Definitely call our office. We've got lots of great therapists here. If some are back in the office, if you prefer telehealth, that's happening as well. You can call Water's Edge at 912-319-5554, or get on our website. We also have obviously this Facebook page. Whitney, you're also coming up with a YouTube channel. Is that up and going?
Well, there is a YouTube channel for Water's Edge Counseling, so look for the scallop shell, and you can watch more videos, kind of like this one. We're working on it, so we're hoping to get as much information out as we can, because we want the community to be able to learn as much as they can about mental health. Yeah. Yes.
I would also, recommend that people who are couples stay close to people who are couples. Doing couples with couples is really important, because we learn a lot from how that is being modeled out. And so small groups, whether your church has those things or activities out in the community, that's really great to keep marriages strong and reliable. But definitely, if you need help, Water's Edge, I recommend them. So.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm always amazed how quickly people can get better. Sometimes even within, 4 to 8 sessions, you can find a dramatic increase in people's well-being and in their mental health in a very short amount of time. So I'm always really amazed by that. So if you're worried that, this is long-term or something like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be, and you can get your marriage going in a good direction within just a few sessions.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And, it affects so much on every level when you think about keeping a healthy marriage. It's such a great investment.
Yeah.
Such a great investment. So, yeah.
Well, Camie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and to give information to everyone. And we just appreciate you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me and doing this.